As we're continuing to look at the Sermon on the Mount, I'd like to share my thoughts with you on Matthew 6, verses 1 to 4. And this is about giving. The Passion Translation actually titles it as Giving with Pure Motives. Examine your motives to make sure that you're not showing off when you do your good deeds, only to be admired by others. Otherwise, you will lose the reward of your Heavenly Father. So when you give to the poor, don't announce it and make a show of it just to be seen by people, like the hypocrites in the streets and in the marketplace. They've already received their reward. But when you demonstrate generosity, do it with pure motives and without drawing attention to yourself. Give secretly, and your Father, who sees all you do, will reward you openly. I find it an interesting verse because it really is talking about the motives of our heart. Jesus isn't saying don't bother doing these things. You know, these were things that were being done as part of the Jewish culture and religion. And Jesus is encouraging these new believers, this vast crowd of people who are following him and longing to be taught by him. And he's saying, yes, when you do these things. So this isn't a kind of don't worry about doing it, or if you're going to do it with wrong motives, don't do it. But what he is saying is the motive for doing it is as important as it is to do the deed. And obviously he talks about the Pharisees here and the fact that, yes, they're seen to be doing all the right things. These are very religious Jewish people. They're leaders in their Jewish culture, and other people look to them. So they're very careful to be seen to be doing things that are right. So, but they're actually making a big display of it. So when they're giving, they're letting everyone know they're giving. And when they're praying, they're not really praying to God. They're praying so that other people can hear them. And when they're fasting, again, they're making a show of it. And what Jesus is saying is, I see you. I see all of you. I don't just see the external things that you do, but I can see right into your heart. I know your motives. I know your intentions. And actually, if your intention is to glorify yourself, is to be the big I am, then that's not good. That you've had your reward. I think it's interesting that it clearly says that giving has a reward. We will be rewarded for our giving. So that reward is either going to be from man, because they're going to think we're wonderful and we're going to get lots of praise from them, or it's going to be from God, but it's not going to be from both. And that our reasons for giving should never be to earn the praises of man, or to elevate ourselves, or to make ourselves feel good, or because we feel we must show other people that we're good and kind. And I think that's there's always going to be a little battle there, because if I'm really honest, there have been times that, yes, I give because of good intentions, but I do want somebody to say to me, oh, aren't you nice? Aren't you kind? Aren't you good? You know, because that makes me feel better. But actually, this is what Jesus is saying, that is not important. That's not important, you know, and neither is it important to always give in secret. This isn't saying you must give secretly. What it's saying is don't make a big song and dance about it. You know, basically, Jesus is saying no one likes a show off. And that's very true, isn't it? So what are the intentions of our hearts when we give to those in need? And I think it's really important for us as Christians, when we do give to others as part of our ministry, to do it in a way that is humble and that is kind, that is considerate to the person that we're actually giving to. Because if not, then that's not really showing kindness, and it's certainly not showing the love of God to that person. A few months ago, I was given a really generous gift. It was something I really needed, and it was something I was certainly praying about. And I had actually said to God, Lord, you know, I don't have an earthly husband. I need you to be my husband, and I need you to be my provider in this case. Please help me, Lord. A very short while later, I received a gift through my door. It was anonymous. No one's name was on it. What was on the envelope was, it said, God the provider. And that was something I'd specifically been praying about. And so that was Oh gosh, I was so grateful to God. Of course, I was grateful to whoever gave that to me. I don't know who that person is or persons. I don't know, but I am so grateful. And but also I know it is an answer to prayer, you know. And if that envelope had come through the door and it had a person's name on it, it would still have been a lovely gift. But I think I would have been obliged to phone them, obviously, and thank them, and then think, oh, can I accept it? And then there'd have been a bit of a battle going on, or you know, it's so the fact that they'd given it anonymously was really, it was a great thing. It certainly glorified God. But I think, you know, if they'd come marching down the road with a big fanfare and blowing trumpets, you know, and we know that's not going to literally happen, but, you know, this is a demonstration of how somebody could give you something and come knocking at the door. And it, a bit like the postcode lottery adverts where someone knocks the door and says, you've won £30,000. And everyone's like, oh, it's amazing, thank you. You know, that if they had done that, I would actually have felt really embarrassed and maybe a little bit humiliated. And so, you know, these things matter. It matters how we do things. So, you know, it's not so much, you know, the wristbands that we have that say, what would Jesus do? WWJD. This is more like, how would Jesus do it? And that's what he's saying. It's not just the what, it's not just what you do, it's how you do it that matters. And if you do it with humility, and we should always give with compassion for that person, and we should always make them feel loved. You know, that's the most important thing. They should feel loved, and we should be glorifying God by showing his love to that person. Earlier on, Jesus is talking about salt and light, about his people being salt and light. And he says about light, shine your light before men so that, you know, your Father in heaven will be glorified by the good deeds you do. And yet here he is saying, don't be a show-off. And it seems a little bit like a contradiction, you know, but actually it's, when you read it, it's about the motive. When people see your light, and remember, the light in us is actually Jesus. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. He also says, you are the light of the world. That light in us is Jesus in us. So really, if we're showing love to others, we're showing that light, we're showing Jesus. And that's what we need to remember. If we're showing Jesus through our giving, that's a good thing, and that's what we should be doing. But if we're showing ourselves off through our giving, then that's not what we should be doing. And that's what he's saying here. There's a difference in how you give. The greatest commandments Jesus also talks about in Matthew, I think it's 22. And he says the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. But the second greatest is to love your neighbour as yourself. And I think that as long as we remember that what we do, we should be loving God and loving our neighbour, and we do it out of that, then we can't go far wrong. And I just quickly wanted to finish and just read again in the Passion Translation, and it's in the same part, Matthew 6, and it's when Jesus gives the model, what we know as the Lord's Prayer, the model for praying. And the Passion Translation, the very first part, just says, Our Father, dwelling in the heavenly realms, may the glory of your name be the centre on which our lives turn. Our Father, dwelling in the heavenly realms, may the glory of your name be the centre on which our lives turn. And I just think that's a really lovely way of putting it. And if we do that, if we want to glorify God, and if we centre our lives around that, we can't go far wrong.